welcome to Revelation Happens, and this is from the exact conjunction spot at the beginning of Jacob's trouble. Today we got Zoom meeting number 2. I hope you enjoy it. We'll do 2 meetings a week. So let's get started. All right, welcome to Revelation Happens. This is Zoom meeting 2. And we have Paul and Danny here today teaching on Revelation. And let's just see what we got here. That's just, let me change my background. Actually, what I had on here was God's Great Week. If y'all probably remember that. Yeah, let me, oops. There, okay. Y'all remember this chart, God's Great Week?
No, could you send that to me in a high quality?
Yeah, that's
I
best.
haven't
I
seen
got it
it either.
right there. But you could probably read that. At any rate, that's a chart I've had for quite a while. Some of it's readable. The sidebar is not really readable. And that is at high def. I'd have to take a closer shot to get it any better than that. I forget where this came from. In fact, this is just the top. At any rate, it's been around for a long time. It's got a lot of different stuff on it. You can see that, I take it. At any rate, all right, Paul. So, what do y'all want to talk about this week?
Do you have any charts or any scriptural lists about the Antichrist?
Yeah, I sent it to you in an email a little while ago.
Did you?
I can pull it up though. I've got it here on my channel. So, do you recall which ones I sent you?
I haven't seen that where you sent it.
All right, let's see. It
Uh,
was. Let me think what I sent you. Oh, it might have been Judgment. Yeah, I think it was this one. Okay, yeah. Let's switch over to this one, and I'll have to go actual size on it so that we can see it. All right, so let's switch back. I've got that one pulled up. All right, Judgment begins. Hour of judgment, in other words. And then I've got all these words defined down here. In other words, judge. These are the different words that are used. And let me move back down to the bottom. That'd probably be better. And let's see, for sorcery, thirst, idolatry, and fornication. Oh, yeah. These are the words for fornication. There's 3 different kinds: sexual, spiritual, and for gain. All right, so let me go back and find that again. Let's see, it'd be judgment. There it is, bottom. All right, let me pull up that. Switch to full screen. Antichrist. There you go. Is that what you're talking about right there?
yeah.
Okay, and there are the verses. So there's
Uh huh.
not a whole lot of verses that use the word Antichrist.
Well, I know that. I know there's only like 4 or 5 of them. I'm just wondering if you had a list of the ones that most of the churches claim to be speaking of the Antichrist. If you had anything like that, if you'd
Well,
track down some of his other.
yeah, that's the actual verses there. First John 2, 2:22, 4:3, and Second John 7, and then
Yeah,
yeah, and then
I
these are the
know
other
those.
verses.
I'm talking about if you had anything on his titles or attributes
Oh,
that
okay.
not necessarily the word Antichrist, but things that are generally attributed to be his titles or attributes that
Oh, I see.
where they
Yeah,
might be referenced in
well,
scripture without actually using that.
Yeah, the thing about the Antichrist, so you've got the dragon, you got the false prophet, or some say the Antichrist, and then you got the beast. So the beast is actually an empire. So we get that from Daniel chapter 7, where it starts out, it tells you the beast are empires. Then we just got to identify which ones. The Antichrist is really Satan, because when you start right there in chapter 13 of Revelation, it tells you that the dragon is in control of the beast, and the Antichrist is who's it's really just a PR person. It's still controlled by the dragon controls all of it. The dragon is Satan. It identifies that in chapter 12 of Revelation. And then in 13, the first verse, it tells you the dragon is in control of the beast, which is your empire, your wicked empire, which is controlling the whole world, because when you start in chapter 13, it already shows you right there there's four beasts. Those are the four beasts from Daniel 7. So then, whoever the Antichrist is simply the person that's, it's like your president or whoever's in control. It could be a military control. It really doesn't matter. It's whoever you're looking at on the media that's holding the gun at you, telling you what to do. That's the Antichrist. The person in control, in other words, at the top. Go ahead.
Okay. What are some of the other things he's called?
Well, Antichrist or false prophet would be the two things that I would see as far as, and I had that on here too. Let me see what I got on that false prophet. It's Revelation. Here, let me just switch back.
Is this chart's on your website too, right?
I sent you the links earlier today.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so there's your false prophet, Revelation 16, 13, 19, 20, and 2010. There's the definition. There's your 16, 13, your spirits of demons, see, the most of the earth to the great war. So all these people that are lying to you on the using the prince of the power of the air, which is the airwaves. So that's all your entertainment news, because that's all they are. They're not real news. When you turn on the TV, all those channels none of those are news channels. They have news, but it's entertainment news. It'd be the same thing as watching The Big Bang Theory with them sitting, or what was that, like Saturday Night Live. It's Saturday Night Live news is what you see on TV. It's entertainment news. They don't have to tell the truth. Even by law, they can do anything they want to say on TV. They could change the words of the president if they want to, and then act like that was what he said. They can do that. Go ahead.
Kind of like the song.
Yeah, they can do anything they want because they're registered as an entertainment station by the FCC, and they won a lawsuit down in Florida years ago when they were sued over that. They were just making it up on TV, and someone sued them when they had the absolute proof that the whole thing was staged. Well, they had more than one, but I think it was the Florida Supreme Court ruled that they don't have to say anything truthfully in the news because they're registered as an entertainment station. And the judge in that, I think he actually used that term, Star Trek. He says, what would his logic, and I agree with his logic, because they're registered as entertainment, not news. He said, what was their logic that someone would sit there 23 hours a day and watch Star Trek and this and that? It wasn't Big Bang because that was many years ago. But watch all these stations, which everyone knows is not truthful. And then in that 1 hour, when they switch to something they call news, think that all of a sudden everything in this news or weather or whatever, it has to be 100% truthful. When 23 hours a day, you know that nothing is truthful. He says they don't have to be truthful because they're registered as an entertainment station. There's no reason that anyone would assume that the news on an entertainment station is truthful. He says that you regard it no different than Saturday Night Live news. It's fake news. That's what it is. That's why Trump has been calling them fake news. They're all fake news. But here's the problem. When the government goes on these fake news stations and gives you news, what is that? Are we supposed to believe that? Of course. We're not supposed to. It's not truthful. There's no expectation that it's truthful. So when people watch TV and think it's truthful, they're fooling themselves. You see? Go ahead. You got anything to add to that, Paul?
No, I agree with what you're saying there, Danny. I mean, David.
David, I'm going to ask you something while I got you here. This AngloIsrael.com, is that your website or is that Ramsey's website?
No, that's mine.
Okay, because when you first open it up, it says Pastor Dr. Everett Ramsey right at the top. That's what was been throwing me. I kept thinking when I go to it, I kept thinking it's his because I would see that. But okay,
No.
that explains it then. So your charts are all on that website.
Yeah.
I
I got I got him on the web basically with all this video and stuff because he's been teaching for a long time, but he just didn't really have anything on the web. So I put a link there because people were coming to mind looking for him, so I put that up there so they could click on it and find it. And then we did these conventions, these Christian Israel conventions, and I wanted people to sign up for that, which again, they need to have that information, so I just put it at the top of my site. Go ahead. What were you going to talk about today, Danny? Weren't you going? Were you going to? The other day you were talking kind of like we were talking about the beast, but then you said you wanted to switch to something else today. You wanted to switch to the Antichrist today.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is Paul and I have talked about this, and I think we're going to start a new video on the Antichrist itself. And the main goal that I would like to accomplish is to dissuade people. And you may not agree with this, but I would like to dissuade people of the notion that there's a flesh and blood man going to come that's going to be the Antichrist.
Well, it'll be Satan.
There's two.
It's Satan.
Well, I know that's what you believe. I don't agree with that, but that's okay, and I'm not here to argue about it. But
well, who did Christ talk to? Who did Christ talk to? At the beginning of Matthew. At the beginning of Matthew, who was Christ talking to?
The same one Eve was talking to.
Right. And who was that?
The whisperer.
Yeah.
I believe exactly like Pastor Emery taught about Satan. I don't believe that there is a real Satan, not a super spook like it's taught by the churches anyway. I believe like he taught. I think the Nakash that was in the Garden of Eden, the word Nakash has got 5 different meanings.
Right.
It means to hiss, which is the reason they called it a serpent.
Okay.
It means to whisper. It means to intently observe. It means to learn by experience. And it means to hiss.
Okay.
Hiss, whisper, learn by experience, and intently observe. All of those things were manifested in the account in the Garden of Eden. And if you can imagine what was actually taking place there, Eve was observing the fig tree. The fig tree is an allegorical symbol of God's law, which continues throughout the scripture. She was intently observing the fig tree. Now, this was irrelevant until it started getting figs on it, and the figs started getting ripe. And she saw different beings or animals eating of the figs, and some of them had distinct markings on them, and they would come back the next day and they weren't dead, and they would eat some more. And Eve reasoned, which is the next meaning of the word nakash. This was her own lust of her flesh that was whispering to her, just like when you see let's say you're still a young man and you're out on the town and you're married, and this really hot woman comes up and starts making eyes with you and starts encouraging you to go off with her. That thing that's whispering inside of you is the lust of your flesh. And so she sees this and she starts reasoning that if she eats of that tree, it's not going to harm her just like it didn't harm that monkey. And she partakes of that tree, and the dying process starts because she has violated God's law, and she learns by experience, and it brings forth death. This is the same being that Yeshua was talking to, or Jesus was talking to, when he was on the mountain, because the scriptures tell us that he's tempted in all manner as we are. And there's only three ways that you can be tempted. One is to have power over others. One is to have material beings, the lust for material things. And the third one is to experience. In all of these three ways, he was tempted on the mountain by this whisperer that was within him, because he was 100% full man, just as he was 100% fully God. Now, I know that's a dichotomy that a lot of people have trouble understanding, but when Jesus looked at the fig tree and he was given the example that it brought forth no fruit, and he was saying that the law didn't bring forth any fruit, and he cursed the law, and the law became a curse, and he became the answer to that. When he saw Nathaniel, he said he called Nathaniel out from the shade of the fig tree. The example was he was calling him out of that into the light of the word, or the light that's provided by the olive. When Zacchaeus went into the fig tree, and that's what it is, Ficus sycamore, scientific name. It's a sycamore fig. He called him down out of the tree and told him to quit eating figs. Come have tea with me. And the allegories continue throughout the scriptures. Whenever we see the allegories used in the scriptures about the fig tree. And I know everybody likes to say it's Israel, because one place that Israel was likened unto a fig tree. But the reason she was likened unto a fig tree was because she was gorging on figs. Now, if you take the example that Jesus Christ gave when he told the people, he says, learn the parable of the fig tree. Now, what was he talking about? He says, for when you see that how did he say it? When the fruit is ripe, he said, now learn a parable of the fig tree. When its branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, you know that it's getting close to the time for it to get ripe. So likewise, when you see all of these things, know that it is near, even at the door. And then he goes on and gives the example of Noah and the days of Noah, and he gives the example of Sodom and Gomorrah, and he starts talking about two in the field, one taken and the other left. But here's the thing about the fig tree. There's multiple scriptures in the Bible that tell us that at the very last time we're going to be turned into wickedness, and that people are going to be doing these things that are exemplary of the days of Noah and the days of Sodom, is be turning away from the truth and violating God's law in mass. Now, when do you find people in the fig tree? You don't find them up there in the wintertime. You don't find them up there in the early spring. But when the figs start getting ripe, that's when they're eating the figs. You don't eat figs except when they're ripe. And this allegory that's given to us, when the fig tree is ripe, that's when you're going to see people in mass eating these figs and violating God's law, which is a sign of his soon return. That's that's the fig and the olive tree example that's given to us in the book of Genesis. And you can also run your references, and this would be a good job for you because you like doing this. Run everything that it says about the fig tree, about how it makes one wise. The law, it says this is your wisdom in the sight of the world. It says that the fig was good to eat. But and the law, it says it's sweet in your mouth and bitter in your belly. It says that the law would open your eyes. The fig tree opened your eyes. The fig tree brought forth death. The law brought forth death. And it never was an effectual approach to God. There were two approaches to God that were given to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. One was the fig tree, one was the olive tree. They could choose to obey the law, or they could choose to come to them with the mercy and grace and the salvation afforded to them through the olive tree, which is Jesus Christ. Of course, we know in the Exodus, when the law was codified, not when it was given, but when it was codified, because we know Abraham kept the law, because the Bible says he did. But when they got into the Exodus and they said, and you got to see that this is pride when they say this. All these things we will do. That's what they said when he said, if you will do all of these things, then I will do this. But God knew that they weren't going to keep the law, and he knew that they were eventually going to turn to it. And one of the things that he told them in the book of Deuteronomy was, when you choose a king. And he knew that they would choose a king like the rest of the nations in the world, and that they would reject him as being their king instead of letting him pick their king. That these beast systems would start ruling over them, and that they would be their downfall. And when Daniel talks about the idols made of gold, silver, brass, iron, wood, and stone, that is alluded to in the book of Revelations, where it says that they still, when all of these plagues and all of these evil things come upon them, they still would not give up their idol of gold, silver, brass, iron, wood, and stone. That is government. That is the image that Daniel saw, or that Nebuchadnezzar saw in his dream, and the image that he made it of. The image when Nebuchadnezzar was living, it was a time when Baal worship was rampant, started back by Nimrod. And wherever they had these temples of Baal, they would erect an obelisk which represented a man's penis. This penis would show people where to come for life. That was the symbol of life to them. That was, to them, they had made that a god. When Nebuchadnezzar, who was, if you read your historical accounts of King Nebuchadnezzar, he was a very brilliant man, and he studied all the religions and philosophies of all the different people in the world, and he was well acquainted with Baal worship. And when Daniel told him that his dream was about a man, he immediately says, of course I see it. The Hebrew religion is talking about a man just like Baal worship. And he created this image, which it tells us was 6 cubits by 6 cubits by 60 cubits, which was a symbol of a man, 6, which represented these 5 kingdoms that Daniel spoke of, 6, which represented corporately government, which is 6. So government is, in fact, the Antichrist. That man that Nebuchadnezzar saw is the Antichrist. And just like you said, which is in total agreement with what you said, it doesn't have to be the same person or a person at any time, but it corporately is that entity which sets itself in the seat of God and says, I am God.
Right. It's the seat of authority. It's whoever is in authority. Usually we just say this person, is the PR. He's really just a PR person, but generally we're pointing to a person. Listen, we only got 7 minutes left, by the way. Let me ask you one thing, Danny. Let's go back to what I asked originally. Right there at the beginning of Mike, when Satan came to test Christ after the 40 days, who was he talking to? Was he talking to a person? Was he talking to the sky? What was he talking to?
He was talking to that voice within him. The reference that it's given to is he was being tempted. He was being tempted by the same thing that tempts you, and that is the lust of the flesh. The scriptures tell us that evil comes from the heart of man. That's the seed of evil is in his heart. It's the lust of the flesh.
All right, all right,
And
all right.
that has
Hold on just a second now. Hold on just a second. The point is that he wasn't talking to himself. Someone offered him the authority to control all of these kingdoms, which means that this entity had the authority over all these kingdoms. Otherwise, they would not have been able to offer that to Christ. So, when he was standing there, those 40 years of the desert, I mean, he wasn't talking to himself. He was talking to someone in authority besides himself because they were offering him control. Go ahead.
Listen to this. Jesus Christ knew he was the Son of God.
Right.
He had control over this,
Yeah.
and it was him logically telling himself, you don't have to go through this process that's been established from the beginning of the world. You can take this kingdom now without anyone stopping you. That was him talking to that lust of the flesh, which was the human side of him, arguing with the spiritual side. It's like my mom used to tell me when I was a little boy, the one voice on one shoulder and the other voice on the other shoulder. Of course, she agreed with you. She said one was God, one was Satan. But it was really God and the lust of the flesh. It was a debate between him saying, I can do this, I can take it myself, I can jump off of this thing, I can jump off of this thing right here and not die because I've got God in me. I am God. And he says, I can turn this stone into bread. He was saying he could do these things.
All right. So then, who is this dragon then? When you start with Revelation chapter 13, you have a dragon in control of the Antichrist, the beast, and the whole thing. So who is this dragon who's defined in chapter 12 of Revelation as this old Satan, the devil? All these terms that you just talked about are all right there in Revelation chapter 12, defined as the dragon. So is this just a non-entity? I mean, or they go somewhat? We got to be able to see them or understand who this dragon is. So, how do you describe the dragon? We got four minutes left.
Okay, the dragon is. By the way, Nebuchadnezzar and Pharaoh were both allegorically referred to as the dragon.
Okay.
The great red dragon. The scriptures tell us who it is.
Right.
And it says that it describes it as that old dragon, the serpent, the dragon, the devil, and Satan. And it tells us exactly who it is because it says that it has 7 heads and 10 horns. And on down in the passage, I think it's chapter 19, John says that when he's telling you what this dragon is, he says there are 7 hills that the woman sits on. The heads are 7 hills. I believe that represents the 7 continents. And he says, and there are 7 kings.
All right, hold on right there. Hold on right there. Hold on. Now, at 13:1, you have the dragon given authority to these people you're talking about. The dragon gave them authority. So the dragon is not them because it's giving them authority. So someone is above them if it gives them authority. Go ahead.
The dragon is the entirety of these 7 kings. It's a corporate entity. The beasts are individual kings. So the dragon, which is this concept that was instituted to reign over us by God himself, It's that concept that gives the power to the beast to afflict us in the last day. This last beast that rules over us, which is number 7, is Mystery Babylon. It's called a mystery because nobody knows who they are and nobody knows where all of this evil is coming from. This is hidden from us because of Second Thessalonians, where it says that God will blind them so that they might be damned. And the reason they're blinded, the reason it's a mystery, is because they love not the truth. And he that letteth will let whenever it's his decision that the time is up, and he takes the blinders off, he touches their eyes, he converts their minds back to him and their hearts back to him, and the Antichrist will be revealed to each and every one of them.
All right, let's hold it right there, Danny. We're down to 1 minute, so let me close out. So our next show, next Tuesday, we can pick up from there, and we'll probably Ramsey will be there. We'll have to answer his question that he asked from the first meeting and that kind of thing. And then the other thing I'd like to mention is that I'm also going to go back and here let's switch over. Okay, I'm also going to go back and well, I don't know. Let's just pick up with that idea. Pick up when we'll decide what we're going to cover as far as topics before the show, before we come on. At any rate, we're on meeting 2, and this is a recurring meeting for teachers. But I'm also going to do a question answer at some point. I'll start a show just for that, and I'll invite the public. If y'all want to come, that's fine. I'll invite some other people to discuss some of the things that we're covering. And if Paul, if you have some things you want to throw in here or one of these meetings, just put it together, and we'll get on your stuff as well. So right now we got a few seconds left. We got to close out. It was a great meeting. Glad to see you, and we'll see you next show next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Central. Y'all got any comment? All right.
God bless.
No, thank you. God bless.
All right. See you later. All right. Well, thanks for watching, and I will schedule a question and answer series. That's what I'm calling it. And you can come over here to my website, angloisrael.com. That's the link in my videos at the top there, and you can find at least my recordings at that one. And we'll be back next Tuesday. So thanks for watching.